Welcome to the first episode of In the Hot Seat with WRP. I'm your host, Robert Worrell. Our first guests are a dynamic husband and wife couple. They are very powerful. They've built successful businesses in real estate, property management, and construction. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce Calvin and Terri Gleaton. Let's dive into their story. How are you all doing this afternoon?
Pretty
I
good.
am doing well.
Thank you for having us, Robert.
Okay, great. So let's just dive into your background. Give the viewers and listeners something about yourself, some background about yourself. Were you born with a big house, white picket fence? Something about yourself. We'll start with you, Calvin.
No. I was actually born in Henry County, Georgia, just south of Atlanta, and mainly spent a lot of time with my grandmother and was originally a yard and farm boy. I had an uncle who had a construction business, and I used to hang out with him, and I was somewhat fascinated with the real estate business and just sort of picked that liking up and just followed him around and ended up getting into real estate after leaving college with a degree in chemistry and working for Eastman Kodak for about 16 years.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. What about you, Terri?
Well, no, I definitely wasn't born with the white picket fence. I'm actually biracial. I'm Native American and Black American. So I was actually born on a reservation in Oklahoma, all right? I'm a card-carrying Ponca Native American. So I was born on a reservation, and I spent the first 6 years there until I went into the foster care system. And so I was an orphan. And definitely no white picket fences. It was a little rough. But, we persevere. And luckily, I was adopted. My parents were educators. We moved to Texas, and I was raised in Texas until I went into the military and then found my way back to Atlanta in 1994.
Wow. What part of the military?
So I served 13 years in the United States Navy. Okay. And I kind of was stationed abroad. I was in Guam, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And those were interesting times.
Okay, excellent. Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? When did you have that aha moment, or when did the light bulb go off?
Well, actually, I would say the light bulb went off after spending a couple of years in the corporate setting, working as a chemist and just sort of flying around the country, working on projects for major paint companies. I got to a place where I didn't really think I should be taking orders from anybody. I just thought it looked like I was smarter than everybody who was in my circle. So I said, well, wait a minute, maybe I should be doing something different. So I just sort of went back to what I thought I liked, and I found passion in real estate, and that was the key for me. Because the old saying is, if you ever find passion in what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that was instrumental for me landing in that space for real estate, because I get up every day and I can make a decision as to what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how long I want to do it, or if I want to do it at all. Mm-hmm. So it's I think that's the thing that continues to fuel my energy for just being in this space.
Okay. What about you, Terri?
So I left the military and went into corporate America. And once I started my family, that is really when the entrepreneur spirit hit me. I had a daughter. I was working in corporate, and things were going good, but I noticed things were not for me in corporate. Mm-hmm. It was all about the job. And having little kids as a mom, you really make a lot of sacrifices to excel in corporate America. And I was already a real estate investor. And like Calvin, I found real estate as my passion. And after I had my second child, I notified my management team that I needed to take some time off for my son's immunizations and all of his checkups. And one of the people on my management team said they'd get back with me. And that was when the light bulb went off, Robert. Mm-hmm. And I said, wait a minute, you'll get back with me. he doesn't have a second mom. So I literally walked off the job and never looked back. I threw everything I had into real estate because I wanted freedoms, and it wasn't about the money. I just wanted the freedom to do things on my time, my schedule, and I didn't want any limitations in my life. And I knew that if I used the work ethic that I had from the military and corporate and I invested it in myself, I knew that I would have massive success.
Wow. Okay. What do you all think is the difference between having an entrepreneurial mindset and just being a business owner? Because a lot of people say they want to open up a business, but if they don't have the right mindset, they're doomed for, failure. What do you all think the difference is? We'll start with you, Calvin.
Well, I think anybody can actually own a business, but when you look at trends and technology and all the things that are happening around you and at the pace that everything is moving and changing, if you don't have the entrepreneurial mindset, you will become stagnant because you have to move, I would say, I guess, with the cheese, so to say. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get stuck in the old way of thinking, the old way of doing business, and they become captivated, and they will essentially or eventually die if they don't move with trends, technology, and the needs of the consumer. So a lot of people will get caught up in that space and just not become acclimated to all the nuances of doing business. And when you don't have that mindset, it's easy to just sort of get left behind by the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Robert, I think that having your business set up like a business is key to the success of it. Mm-hmm. And that's on the business ownership side. So it's always fun to be the CEO because you call all the shots. But I believe in coaching people to understand that the COO, and that's you too, mm-hmm. when you're a business owner, has to function like an entrepreneur. Just like Calvin said, you have to be fluid. You have to move with the trends. I think business owners go out of business. Okay, when things are not structured right. Business owners go out of business every day in this country, but entrepreneurs never go out of business. They pivot. They're hustlers. So they move where they have to move to keep business flowing.
They don't cheat the grind.
No, you can't. You can't cheat it.
Okay. Calvin, this is directed to you. I know early on in your real estate career, you had several Century 21 franchises. I want you to tell the viewers and listeners the pros and cons of having so many franchises, and just explain to them, even though you had numerous agents, what are the pros and cons of having such a big brokerage?
Well, I would say, I'll start with the cons. When you have a large business with an expanded footprint, you also have to have an expanded mindset, and you have to be able to entertain people and not make it all about your feelings and thoughts. You have to look at the reality of circumstances. So some of the negatives that comes into that space is, number one, you have to deal with employees. Not every employee will have your best interests at heart. Not every employee wants to do his or her job, but every employee wants a check. And they don't, when you're dealing with employees, they really don't connect with the fact that they need to produce a service in order to earn the check. It's just all about the check. And so if you find yourself in that space, that's going to be, each employee can be a potential trap for you, because if they're not producing, then you're paying. That's revenue. So that's just one of the cons. Mm-hmm. But then when you're dealing with customers, not all customers are satisfiable. And of course, anytime you have a big footprint, that means you're going to have a pretty large overhead. So the bills don't stop coming, meaning the bills are fixed. So regardless of how the economy is doing and all of that, you've got to be prepared to meet payroll. You've got to be prepared to keep the lights on and all of that. But the good thing is when business is thriving, you're making a lot of money. And as long as you are planning for the not so fruitful times, you're going to be okay. And of course, you know, if the business just takes a total stop, like what happened with COVID, then you're going to have to make some major adjustments. So when you can plan along the way and just sort of make sure you're profitable in all arenas, then you're going to be fine. But if you're not planning and on an ongoing basis, that can create some trouble because you've got to be able to look ahead and visualize some of the things that could happen, some of the things that are going to happen, and some of the things that you can't control. So I think the pro part is you're going to make a lot of money if you have a broad vision in terms of what that business should look like, what the customer wants. You're going to be profitable month after month. But then, of course, you get these dark times. Those are the things that sort of just say, well, oh, why did I do this? But when things are thriving, you're just killing it. You're making money, and you don't even think about that. Mm-hmm. But I think a good business person has to create a wholesome perspective that brings into play the good, the bad, and the ugly, like we had with COVID, because that can be, if you're not prepared for those kind of changes or abruptions, then you're going to be setting yourself up for failure because it's not always going to be peaches and cream.
Okay. And Terri, you made a valid point. You said entrepreneurs have to pivot. When the real estate market tanked, I know at one point, Calvin, you started doing property management. You know,
Yes.
It was almost as if default, it's like, well, the real estate market is tanking. Let me go ahead and do property management. Could you expound upon how you got into that?
Well, the reason when I got into the real estate business, of course, I had just an awesome career selling. On average, I sold somewhere between 55 and probably 80 properties a year. And that was really during my part-time periods because I was working full-time as a chemist. So having that level of success, one of the things I was always afraid of because I worked both real estate and that job for 4 consecutive years doing that kind of volume. But I wouldn't leave the job because it gave me a level of comfort that I don't know. I just didn't want to give up. And I think when you have that level of comfort and you find yourself doing both, you just say, well, okay, I'm not going to give this up because I got the best of both worlds. But eventually I did decide to give it up. And one of the things that gave me that level of comfort was, diversifying into the property management space. Because one thing I knew if I did that, if sales just came to a complete stop, everybody was going to be renting.
Yes.
So I just said, well, okay, if I can diversify over here. So when I opened the first franchise, I actually started the property management business. And I started the property management business with 14 of my own properties because I didn't have time to do those properties, to manage them, deal with the tenants. So I hired this girl who knew everything about property management. And I didn't know I didn't know a whole lot about it. I knew a little bit about it that I had learned from the School of Hard Knocks. So, but this girl, I was blown away because she didn't even have a real estate license, but she knew everything about property management. And the way she had learned, she had worked in a property management company for Caldwell Banker for years, just as an administrative person. But everywhere I had shortcomings, she filled those gaps. And so connecting with that right person gave me just that whole platform to grow that property management business. So I just turned it over to her, and one day I woke up, we had a couple of hundred properties. So it was sort of, and I said, well, wait a minute. When I started looking at the broad spectrum of income from property management, and I said, well, wait a minute, what if we had 400 properties? What if we had 600 properties? Because the management business was self-sufficient. It had very little overhead. And we started thinking about that. But I didn't really have to think about it because the franchise offices were growing so fast. There were every agent, had property management referrals because, in the state of Georgia, you have to have a broker's license to practice property management. Mm-hmm. So I was able to just grow that business mainly based on referrals. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, by the time the market tanked, we had almost 500 properties.
Wow.
And after that, we went to probably 700-ish properties because the banks weren't lending any money. So the average property, when you look at it, was, I think, then had a value of around $5,000 a year. So if you got 700 of them, just do the math.
Right.
So we were able to keep that because after the real estate market tanked, the banks were just sort of real soft about lending money for about 3 years. So that business, we had some months we would rent 50, 60 properties.
Yes.
And then every month you have so many renewing. So every time you got the renewals, you got renewal fees and all of that every month. So it created a constant flow of income that we didn't have even when we had closings. So it really, that was turned out to probably be, I would say, the most productive and most fruitful part of our business during the low periods.
Okay.
And it still is.
Yes.
So
yes.
when did you realize, I have all these properties, I might as well just go ahead and, do the repairs, open up a construction company myself. When did that come about?
Well, when you're dealing with contractors and, because when you have that number of properties, of course, you have so many leases mature every month, so many people move every month. So once people move out, you have those setting. And of course, you may, assign a contracting job to this person, that person. But one of the things that happened when the market got so fruitful in the rental space, we used to have to reach out to all type contractors, and everybody was commit to doing something, but only about 50% of the time would they deliver. So we didn't meet some of our possession dates, and it was just sort of creating a customer service nightmare. So one of the things I realized was all of the construction guys, because lending had essentially stopped, the builders had properties sitting, but a lot of the construction guys did not have work. So I ran across a couple of people that were working for D.R. Horton, and it was a couple of sons and a dad. And I said, well, I gave them a couple of jobs, and they did really good work. I mean, they were very professional. They were knowledgeable about construction, whole 9 yards. So I started giving them the assignments, and they just went from one property to another. And I said, well, okay, maybe this solves this problem. And that's what landed me into that space, because I just had so many bad relationships with people who could not meet their commitment in terms of promising to have this house ready by the 1st. And, a lot of times people were moving 7, 10, 30 days later than the originally projected day. So that created a nightmare for us. So I solved that problem just by getting my own people and hiring them, and it was rosy after that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and this question is for both of you all. Can you provide examples of how having an entrepreneurial mindset has helped you identify and capitalize on opportunities in your career or business?
I would parlay that one to Terri.
So running the business, like Calvin said, you can get stagnant if you're not looking at all levels of your business. But one of the things that Calvin and I have done an amazing job that I believe is creating profit centers within our business. And that's that entrepreneurship, saying, okay, we have a need for construction. Let's pivot here. We have a need because we have so many real estate agents that are attached to us. Let's start a real estate school. Right. So there's all of these businesses that we have that intertwine. And I think that's that entrepreneur in us saying, wait a minute, there's a need. Let's fill the need. Right. There's clients already waiting at the door. And branding and marketing and social media is so huge. And a lot of times when you have the right business structure set up, if you just leverage that entrepreneurship mindset, you don't have to brand. The business is already there waiting for you. So I would say that's one of the things that we've done very well and been able to create multiple seven-figure businesses doing it that way.
Okay. All right. You, Mr. Calvin?
Well, I think the key thing for any business owner is to stay focused and always know what's going on in that space. Because what I learned over the years from dealing with employees and contractors is they tell you number one, what you want to hear and what they want you to know. So if you're not intertwined or interfaced in the space well enough to really know when someone is pulling your leg, you will find yourself in a world of trouble because people will lie to you. That's probably one of the biggest challenges I had. People, either they'll give you part of the truth
Right.
or a segment of the truth, but never the whole thing. So being connected to every phase or facet of the business is, I think, key to mega success, because you could be profitable in certain spaces. Mega profitable in certain spaces, but if you're not watching other spaces, the money you make in these spaces can go out the door. And on the segments where you don't really have your eyes on the prize.
Robert, I want to piggyback off of that. There was a time when we had over 21 employees. And I remember Oprah used to say, always sign your own checks, right? Calvin has always signed the checks. I can remember before we could even go out of town on vacation, we would have to stop by the office and the checks would just be lined up, just rows and rows and rows of checks for him to sign. And I'm going to tell you, this man, because he knows his business and he's in it like an entrepreneur, knowing that at the end of the day, it's his responsibility. He's looking at these checks and he's saying, oh, we're sending this owner $2,000, but I remember we replaced a water heater at that house last month, and we had to, get the cleaning crew to suck, the carpet dry. Where's the receipt? Where's the invoice for that? And being able to look at those monies and realize, wait a minute, that owner isn't entitled to $2,000. They need to pay their repair bill first. So just having that eye on the prize, or in your business, and knowing what's happening in your business and knowing the money side. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs have good skill sets, but the mindset means you have to run it like a business, right? So you have to know the numbers. You have to know what's happening in your business, because the last thing you want is to work work to the bone, and there's no profitability in your business.
Yeah, and I think and I'll give you an example of what she's talking about. Every month when I would actually preview checks before signing them or during the signing of checks, on average, and this was on average, and this is no exaggeration, I would find between $5,000 and $10,000 per month, every month, where we had not invoiced an owner.
Wow.
So if you do that for 1 year,
Yeah.
that means you're going to be hit for between $60,000 and $120,000.
But I
if you
bet
do
you-
that for 10 years, that's $1 million.
But I bet you those employees, they wanted their checks. Every
Oh,
2
they
weeks,
wanted
right?
that check.
They got the checks.
So
They were going to get that check. And sometimes they ask for them early.
Right.
So-
And sometimes, like having the partnership, us working in the business together is definitely a huge advantage, because sometimes Calvin's all over the place. He's here, he's there, he's signing checks, he's out in the field, he's selling a house, he's flipping a house, he's doing all of these things. So I'm there in the office and I'm watching and I'm learning and I'm implementing. So one of the things that Calvin had, I remember when we had got close to 1,000 properties he had managed, we still didn't have software. And he had 21 employees pushing paper, right?
Wow.
And honey, I implemented that software in a matter of 30 days. And I think we were able to downsize our staff immediately. We tried to help folks land on their feet, but those that really wanted to grow with us, we downsized to 7 people because of implementing the right software into our system, automation. And we didn't even know what AI technology was back then, but that's what we were doing. We were creating automation, and it has made such a huge impact on our bottom line.
Wow.
So much so, think about this. We only have the software. We have, I would say, half of those properties, or less than half of those properties, but we only have really 2 full-time people now. So we went from 21 people across the entire brokerage down to 2 full-time people and 1 part-time person. But that's how impactful and powerful the software is. And if you don't connect with that as a business owner, you will essentially just sort of have this level of overhead that's, number one, not manageable, number two, not affordable, and you could conceivably just sort of put yourself out of business just by not adapting to what I would call, your technology or just the needs of the business itself. If you're not connected, you have no clue about what's needed,
Right.
how to get it, and what you should do, because you expect for people to tell you everything, and they will tell you, but it might not be the right thing.
Right. And Robert, what I was seeing was $1 million jump in other people's pockets and run out of our door every year, by having so many employees and not the right technology and automation in place.
Yep.
So I come from a world of IT. That's what I did for 13 years in the Navy. And when I came out of the military, I worked for IBM, and I was always in the technical space. And when I would be at the office, I'd always say to Calvin, like, everything is just so hard. This doesn't have to be this hard. But at the time, he had a general manager that she just had the squeeze on everybody, right? And she did not want me snooping around and changing her office around. But we needed to. We needed to adjust and be, to allocate those resources in other places to grow. And we've been able to grow the organization,
Right.
continue to stay consistent. We're just really happy that we had enough fortitude to see beyond.
Okay. Well, how do you all continue to improve your mindset with so many businesses under your belt?
I will parlay that one to Terri, and then I'll chime in.
Okay. So Calvin and I invest a lot in self-development. I remember during COVID, I would say we invested 6 figures in conferences, conventions. As soon as travel was open, we were, in that space. I'm an avid reader. He's a reader. So we're always looking to grow mentally. I have mentors that I check in with monthly. You should always have somebody in a success circle that you can be a part of that challenges you to take your business to the next level. A lot of people feel that they're a lone ranger on an island by themselves. But you, as the business owner, you're responsible for positioning people intentionally into your life that'll help you take your business to the next level. So when I'm around these other CEOs and directors of this and major organizations, I'm challenged to be better, to think outside the box. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm learning, I'm taking notes. So I would say that's the biggest thing is, who are you spending your time with? You don't need fans when you want to grow, okay? Fans are great, people that look up to you, but you've got to position yourself to be around people that are doing things that you want to do, people that are doing amazing things that almost frighten you when you walk in the room.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Your circle, the people in your circle will actually make the difference in sort of keeping you in a space where you are either challenged or you become stagnant. It's just sort of critical to challenge yourself, get in the spaces where you find yourself uncomfortable so that you can continue to develop and mature as a person, or that you can bring the resources to your business to continue to diversify and, expand the footprint to cover and have services and products that people can actually use. Because, of course, with the advent of the internet, a lot of the service-related businesses have changed. You can get a lot of services right online, but when you have a personal connection with people, they will either continue to support and help you to grow that business. And when you're continuously immersed in those different circles, you will find new business connections that will help you expand your mindset, as well as give you perspective on what you should be doing to get your business a bigger footprint, or continue to grow, or continue to provide better services. So it's all about the company you keep.
And I want to piggyback on what you just said, having a personal connection with people. Could
Yes.
anyone, both of you all, could you explain the importance of building relationships?
I will let you take off on that one first.
It's really the key to your success is the relationships, because you can get business, but you won't be able to harness it and keep it if you can't build great relationships. Real estate in general, it's a business that's relationship driven. People are trusting you with the largest investment of their life, whether they're buying or selling, or making an investment into a rental property. So there's a lot of trust that goes into that. And I think a lot of times, people take away that and make it about a business transaction, just the money exchanging. And, that's really where you really lose people, because I think people can sense that you're after a check, right? They can sense you want your commission. But having that relationship is what keeps the clients coming back and back and back. Almost, I would have to say 85 to 90%, maybe even higher, of me and Calvin's business is relationship driven. It is referrals. You're not going to see us TikTok-y dancing. And I love all of the trends. Don't get me wrong. I love all of the trends. Everything is really great. I think it opens the door for new agents to come in and people new to the industry just to really have massive success. But when you're an old school person like us, it's really the people that drive our business. Coming up to the podcast today on a Sunday, I would say Calvin and I both on our phones took in 6 new clients today. Both of us.
Wow.
But that's every day. And it's just, where do we find a place? Is this somebody calling about construction? Is this somebody that needs to get their real estate license? Is this somebody that needs help with a contract? Is this a seller? Is this a buyer? Is this a landlord? Is this a tenant? But this is our phone all day, every day. And it is definitely relationship driven.
Wow.
Yep. No doubt. Relationships, when I look back at the Century 21 franchise growth, I started with one office, and I when I left Remax, I think left with 6 people. And all of a sudden, about 8 months later, we had 80 people in that one office. And I looked at the roster, and I didn't know but about 14 of the people. So what that told me was, okay, well, what is it about these people that brought an average of about 60 more people into this office in an 8-month period? So I was in a space where it forced me to evaluate what did I do, because that's a mega success story, because most brokerages who have been around for 10, 20 years didn't have 80 people. So I sort of duplicated that. So I made it all about the people, and formed some great relationships with those 80 people. I would bring attorneys, CPAs, accountants in, tax-paying people, politicians in to talk to them, train them. And all of a sudden, we had 200 people. So forming those great relationships and having professionals who had really great value to bring into that space just sort of fostered a level of growth that was incomprehensible. So I just sort of expanded on giving, meaning pouring into people. And all of a sudden, I was busting at the seams with agents. So I decided to open an office here, open an office there. And the same thing just continued to happen.
Did the 80-20 rule apply, with all those agents?
At the time, we had those agents. It was sort of amazing to me because it only applied to, if you took probably, I would say 50 agents out of a couple of hundred agents, it applied to them. But for all those people who actually engaged in that level of training and who really participated and took an interest in wanting to just change their level of success, they had mega success. Even people who were working a full-time job were selling 3-5 houses a month. Wow. So it sort of transcended the typical real estate or the traditional brokerage, because we were just sort of pouring into them so much value. And so one of the things I noticed was one company started to copy what we were doing because we had so much success. We came out of nowhere. And that started with micro brokers. They even took it to the point of opening a school. And they started their real estate school based on what we were doing. And they still have that school, and that's how they actually grow today. They will pay for your schooling and teach you everything about schooling, help you get your license, but you got to sign a 2-year agreement.
That's how they get you.
Exactly.
Robert, back then, Calvin was an amazing inspirational broker because he was out there. He was in the trenches as well. So he was sharing with us real principles. It wasn't theory. It wasn't an idea of how to get successful. It was follow the leader. So many agents were having success because he was opening up his playbook. He was really, really avid about us as agents getting in the listing space. And no other brokerage was really pushing the listing space other than to their big team leaders. But just for the brand new agent, Calvin was saying, listen, you've got a list to last. You're going to take this listing. And I remember as a new agent, I told him, well, I don't do listings. And he said, oh, you do listings. Yes, you do, So it's just kind of funny when you don't have that mentorship and that guide, you really can come into this business and leave in less than a year because you just don't know the proper steps to take. And Calvin was really instrumental in my success as a new agent. And I was glad to be in the number where I was selling more than 4 to 5 homes. Some months, I remember our accountant told me I had 11 closings one month. And on closing 7, she said, if you come down here one more time to get a commission check, I'm kicking you off the roster. I said, baby, I'm coming 4 more times. Yeah.
So it goes back to that old adage, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of you. And it seems like, since Calvin, you were in the trenches, it's come back full circle. You're a giving person.
Well, I would have to say that because there have been some, oh my God, a lot of people say this business is cyclical, and it truly is. And if you've been around in this space long enough, you know it is. But the key thing is, I think if you just hold steadfast and diversify when you come into the space, I think the playing field is leveled and you're able to generate income from many different perspectives or profit centers that you may set up along the way. And that's going to be different for I think everybody who comes into the business. Because there's a level of comfort in some spaces that I have that a lot of people don't either have that level of comfort or the patience, or they don't even want to have it. So everybody's going to be different. It just depends on your level of passion that you're going to have for the space.
Okay. So let me ask you, both of you all this. If someone comes to you and they say, I want to open up a business, Calvin and Terri, but I don't have the right mindset, what would you tell them?
Well, I think anybody can come into a business and be successful with the right mindset. First of all, I want to say that because I remember when I got into the real estate business, my main focus was to educate myself. It had nothing to do with me wanting to sell. Mm-hmm. It was all about education. So when I bought my first house, the thing that made me take a second look at sales was this lady that showed me my house that I bought, the very first one. I think I was 22 years old. She could barely get out the car and open the door to show me the house. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. This is sort of easy. So we went to closing, I think about 3 weeks later. Mm-hmm. And this was in 1982 when she sold me this house, right? But I paid $72,000 for it. And back then, that would be like buying a probably $600,000 house today. Well, when we were at the closing, we were there for about 35, 45 minutes, and they gave her a check for $5,000. I looked at it and I said, well, damn. I mean, excuse me, but that's what I said. I said, I'm in the wrong business. Because I said, I could do this 30 times a month. Mm-hmm. So, and I said, even if I'm 50% wrong, hey, I would still be happy.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, wait a minute. So I said, okay, I can further diversify in this level of my interest in real estate by getting a real estate license. So that's what I did. I went, back then you only had to go to school for like 30 days and take the test and you could get a license. So I had the license just about the same time I moved into the house. So I sort of got my feet wet by going, the office that I affiliated with, one of my high school teachers' husband worked at that office. So I remembered her always talking about him, and the fact that I affiliated with that office just was coincidental. So I connected with him and sort of learned some things from him. And we just sort of, I really quickly realized that was a space where I could get in and potentially make a great living and do some things that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And so much so, I connected with everybody in that office at the time. If you think back in the 80s, there were not a lot of us in the real estate business. And I'm serious, there were not a lot of us. So that office, for example, was probably 50-50 in terms of race, but that was probably an anomaly in the sense because most offices were either all white or they were 2 or 3 people and they were black offices. Mm-hmm. There was not a big footprint for black brokers and agents. So anyway, getting into that office, connecting with the right people, quickly got me acclimated to, the real estate business. And I was able to just sort of dive into that space and create, I would say, a good 6-figure income after about 5 years. And I was working actually part-time. So, so I ended up making more money in real estate part-time than I was on my job until those later years when I actually left.
Wow.
So, so that was sort of a great place to be. So, and I think anybody can do it. It's just a matter of committing on a high level to doing it. But if you choose a space where you have that passion to thrive, you will never give out of energy because you will always be pushing to get better. But if you choose a space where you don't have that passion, then you may be in trouble because you might run out of gas. Because building a business, it does take a lot of energy because it just does.
Yes.
So when you have passion, it's a lot easier. It can be a lot more profitable because you sort of interface your daily activities into the business and you interface the business into your daily activities. So if you have that type mindset, then you will start to connect dots that other people can't connect because they don't have that passion that you have. So you will, for example, for me, it was property management. It was fix and flipping. It was doing repairs on my own house initially when I first wanted to understand the construction business, which I had a feel from my uncle because I used to tag along with him. So just having that overall mindset and the thought processes centered around just being in that space will help you to grow, acclimate to other spaces.
Okay. All right. So let's move to what are you currently doing? What are both of y'all currently doing as of this moment?
I would say it's all real estate related.
Real estate related. Okay.
Because think about one of the key things when I talked earlier about having great people in your space. Well, one of the things I did early on when we were doing the hustle and bustle part of the property management business, one of the things that I truly believed in was connecting with college students because they had something that I didn't have. And first I had to admit that, and that was they were technology driven. So especially in the 90s with the advent of the internet, everybody who was in school had a laptop or a computer.
Yes.
So these kids, I would always have one or two college students working in my space, always. I had, like when I was selling the 70, 80 houses a year, I had a college girl come in the morning. I had a college girl come in the afternoon, two different people. And, minimum wage back in the day was only $5, $7. So they were profit centers. I looked at them as profit centers. I couldn't do without them because they did all the administrative work, the whole 9 yards. So even after getting into the franchise space, I carried that over and I would always have a couple of high school students. So I got a couple of high school students, got them to working in the office. And right now, today, I have a girl that's been with the management company for probably 8 or 9 years, but she's the general manager. She can run circles around me.
And me.
But she's learned that business, and she's so smart, she does even other type business. So I can put everything in her hands. She handles all the money, everything. Only thing I do is look at the bank statements, and I've even got to the point now, I'm so frequent at, keeping track of the money, I let her sign checks because I'm always looking at the checks. So it doesn't matter. So, but that person, she does the work of the last 5 people that left.
Wow.
And so if you fuse her longevity with technology, she's able to outperform the average 3 people because she doesn't know any better. Meaning she was taught that, hey, you can handle this, you can manage this. And she's taken technology and automation to a level that says, oh yeah, this is easy. So that's how important it is to have the right people in your space. And I made some mistakes early on. I had a lot of people in my space because they were relatives or friends. Worst mistake I ever made. I lost more money dealing with relatives and friends. I'm serious. I mean, to the tune upwards of $1 million, because I had a level of trust which allowed me not to check up on those people. They were signing checks, creating time. They were doing everything.
They were very creative.
So, oh my God, man. And that's where I lost the most money, dealing with people that I trusted. Those people that I trusted, like I said, were mainly relatives. So I think we let our guard down with people that we think we know when you don't really know. And they will cost you a lot of money. So looking back, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made.
Okay.
So I think having that type of support staff allows us now to just kind of do what we love to do. So as Calvin mentioned, we're immersed in everything real estate. You know, we own a real estate school, we coach, we mentor, we guide other real estate agents. We're into developing. We have 3 acres that we're looking to develop and do something creative with in Henry County. We're always fixing and flipping. Even our kids are getting into that space, which is really cool. Let's see, we sell houses. Yes, we do. We do sell houses. We had a closing on Friday, so we do like that. We do a lot of listings, mainly on the listing side. We just have so many clients that Calvin has serviced over the year. I think we went to a listing appointment the other day, and the couple had been in the house 30 years. And they remembered Calvin. And when we got there for the listing appointment, they said, well, you look a little different. You don't have your hair anymore. It was so cute, right? But like he said, just all things real estate. We do it all, and we're going to keep doing it all. We're building a legacy over here. You know, we're wealth advocates for others. And the old saying is, the more people you help, you know, things are just going to come back to you. You know, you'll help yourself with your own goals. So we're going to keep doing what we do, Robert.
Okay. Do you all have any regrets from the business decisions that you've made in the past? And if so, how did you turn those regrets into triumphs?
It sounds like Calvin shared his.
Well, I think on the franchising end, looking back over the franchise period, I would have probably looked at franchises a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, back in the old way of doing business with the traditional brokerages, franchises were great. But there's no ongoing value there that you depart with. Whereas if you look at the EXP business model now, we are what we call shareholders, meaning we're owners in that space. So that's totally different from the traditional brokerage model. But not only that, when I was doing the franchises, I did not have any stream of monthly income in that space that came from that company. Well, Terri and I both have a 5-figure monthly income from EXP because we joined back in 2017 before the stock went mega crazy. But of course, since then, we've grown an organization that's sizable. But on top of that, you got the stock component. You just don't get that at traditional brokerages. So knowing what I know now, I would never do the franchise thing again. I would never do the franchise thing again. But for that time period, it was appropriate. Mm-hmm. But franchises, the negative on the franchise side is this: once you sign a franchise agreement, it's like 5 or 10 years. And regardless of how business conditions are, you have minimums that you have to meet. meaning you have a monthly advertising fund that you have to pay to the franchisor. You have production-driven goals that you have to meet, and there are minimums there also. But then on top of that, you also have the franchise fees, meaning the 6% that you would go pay to like Keller Williams, Century 21, Caldwell Banker. So I would never do the franchise model again because a model like EXP has so much value and it gives you an ownership interest in the platform. But not only that, it goes one step further in the sense that it gives you a part of, you can potentially take that value. Let's say I'll give you a straight hardcore example. If something happens to me today, well, Terri will continue to get that check. So I've incorporated the value adds that EXP brought to the real estate space into my estate planning. So, of course, we did a big estate plan. So if anything happens to me, and vice versa, anything happens to Terri, I'll continue to get that check for as long as I'm around and I keep an active real estate license.
Okay.
So that's so I would never do the franchise thing again, number one. And number two, I still have this big organization, but all the responsibility is the broker at EXP for the state of Georgia. They don't answer to me, or I don't answer to them. They answer to the state broker. Okay. So, and that takes away that liability component, but it also takes away that big, huge commitment to insurances for E&O, errors and omissions, general liability, all of that stuff shifts up to the state broker. So it's sort of like I'm in a space now where I get all the benefits and more, but I don't have this high level of commitment to real estate that the traditional brokerage has if they are running their own brokerage. So I gave all of that up, but I got more in return by affiliating with EXP. So I wouldn't do that again. So that's the biggest thing, is the franchise thing. And a lot of people are doing that because they don't understand the EXP model, number one, and they don't understand franchising, number two. Mm-hmm. But I would never do that again.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what can we expect from Calvin and Terri in 2024? I'm going to have you, Ms. Terri, answer that.
So we're going to continue to grow our property management business. It's the bread and butter of what we do. We have a built-in book of business on the list side, the client side, buyers, sellers. Everything is wrapped up in that property management business. So we'll continue to grow it. It's a family-run business, as Calvin said. Our general manager has been with us for 8-9 years. She started with us when she was in high school. She saw herself through her college career, and she even went back and did something else, a second degree, but she still finds comfort right there with us. And we travel as a company, as a family when we go on vacation. We like that. We went to Dubai. We're able to take like 6 people with us and just experiencing a life of freedom. So we'll continue to always grow property management, Robert, because it's a part of our succession plan. I hear brokers use that term. I'm building a legacy. I'm building a succession plan. And sometimes you're building a trap, for somebody that may not come along and really want to do that. But as Calvin said, with everything that we're building, it's passive. Anybody, any of our children can step in and continue to benefit for generations to come off what we're doing right now. In addition to that, our organization, as Calvin said, we've grown several hundred agents nationwide in our group, the Wealthy Group, and we're looking to grow that further. So what you'll see in 2024 is we're looking to grow to over 1,000 agents nationwide. Because we enjoy helping other agents. There's no secret here. We've got the blueprint. We're sharing it with others. And we're just going to continue to grow and push that narrative and get to the right people.
Okay. And for our listeners and viewers, how can someone get in contact with you? Do you have a website or a phone number? If someone, viewing, listening to this podcast, like, well, how can I get in contact with Calvin and Terri?
So we're going to give our office number. Yeah, we're going to give our office number. You can always reach us. We're old school, so you can contact us at our office, 770-305-7934. And you can follow us on Instagram, Calvin and Terri Gleaton, and then I'm Terri Marie Gleaton. So that's how you could get in touch with us, and you can DM us. It's okay.
Do you all have anything else you want to add?
You know, I want to say one thing. Your audience has got to know that we are living on borrowed time. It is so important that you connect with the people that want the best for you, not just the best from you. You want to surround yourself with people that want the absolute best for you. The market is changing, the economy is changing, and things will get tighter and tighter. So it's super important that you invest in people that want to invest in you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Gleaton?
That's it. For me, I'm just, we're going to continue to grow that organization and try to get a lot of people in this space educated so that they can at least find some residual value if they're, if you're going to be in this space, because the traditional brokerages that everybody's connected to now, they just don't have any residual value. They don't have any passive value. So if there's a platform out here like this, I think we all need to partake and get the benefits from it.
Yeah.
So just like technology has changed, the real estate business has changed, and hopefully we will be able to educate thousands of people. And that transition is, I think EXP has shown that it's the fastest growing real estate company in the world now, and the most productive real estate company in the world. So, because we set a lot of records this past year, and I think everybody's taking notice, but we're also bringing that value to agents. So, and of course, I'm just sort of in the best place I can ever be. I don't have to travel to offices. I don't have to chase agents, and I got an income for life. So
Hey, you can't beat that.
No,
No.
you can't.
Okay. Well, as the host of In the Hot Seat with WRP, I would like to thank Calvin and Terri Gleaton for being the first guests on my podcast, and I am looking to continue to grow this. And with that, we're out.